Alright, so normally I do not make these types of videos talking about rumors that are unsubstantiated, but this one is gaining a lot of traction, and because it's a Final Fantasy related rumor, I kind of feel like I gotta talk about it. And that has to do with a quote-unquote report going around that Square Enix is allegedly panicking at Final Fantasy XVI's low pre-order numbers, and these numbers are apparently lower than Final Fantasy XV's pre-order numbers, so they're comparing it to 15, as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is coming to us from someone by the name of Imran Khan, who I'm not very familiar with. I did a little bit of research, and apparently, some people are not a big fan of Khan, so with that being said, he's the only person who's reporting this quote-unquote information. No one else in the industry who is reputable has brought this news to light. It's just him talking on his newsletter that he had where he is giving this quote-unquote news that Square is panicking. Now, let's say this is true. If Square is actually panicking because the numbers are low and they're comparing it to the aforementioned 15 and 7 remake, well, we kind of got to dive a little bit deeper into that statement because it's not a really fair equation. Final Fantasy VII is a franchise that's been around since 1997. Millions upon millions of people have played it and still play it to this day. It has huge, legendary name recognition. It had a movie made after it, for crying out loud. Multiple spin-off games. So when people hear 7, they know what that is. And when 7 Remake was coming out, there were people who were like, wait a second, I played the original when I was a kid. They're remaking that one? I gotta check it out. People in the mainstream news and media who didn't normally talk about gaming brought up Final Fantasy VII Remake and how excited they were. Bigger states like California had buses that had Cloud in the Shinra building on the side of their bus plastered there for marketing. So again, trying to compare it to 7's not really fair. 7 is absolutely a behemoth in its own right, and 16 is a brand new game. As for 15 was in the public eye for quite some time, I think maybe 10 years or so, because it had a very long and tumultuous development cycle. Different directors got switched out. Versions of the game were made that got scrapped. A multitude of different playable demos came out that people could try. It got its own movie. And it was multi-platform, so it had the benefit of being on a PS4 and on an Xbox. And granted, because it's multi-platform, its pre-order numbers are going to be higher. That's just kind of how it goes. Even though I don't think 15 sold all that well on the Xbox. All in all, what I myself and many other people are just trying to say is that trying to compare a newer Final Fantasy 16, which is a Final Fantasy game, but still technically a new IP because it's a new story, new gameplay, new everything, to pre-existing Final Fantasy games just doesn't really seem kind of fair. And if I'm not mistaken, Yoshi P himself has said that he does not expect this game to do gangbusters right out the gate. It's not going to be a God of War where it sells, 11 million copies after its first month of release, which is insane. And then you got like the Elden Rings, which have sold like 20 million copies now. Yoshi P is not expecting this game to be that big of a seller right out the gate. I think he has like a 16-month sales plan for the game and how he charts how it's going to perform. So that's all just kind of up in the air. And on top of that, I think a lot of us just expect 16 to be one of those sleeper hits where it comes out, it does relatively well, and then the more word of mouth spreads, the more people find out about it, maybe through the demo that's going to come out, maybe towards the end of the year when Game of the Year stuff starts happening, the game will have more eyes on it, which will probably get more people to want to go out and actually play it. And on top of that, this is something I've thought to myself a lot over the years, but do pre-order numbers really matter all that much anymore? I myself don't really pre-order that many games. If a game has a cool incentive attached to the pre-order, sure, I'll pre-order the physical or I'll pre-order the digital, just to get that cool trinket that comes along with it. But judging pre-order numbers, you gotta take into account the actual day one numbers of people who will just come across the game randomly in a store or on a digital storefront and decide, hey, there's a new Final Fantasy? I think I'll check it out and I'll buy it. So there's a lot of factors that really go into this quote-unquote report and panicking and comparisons for Final Fantasy 16, but it just all seems really goofy. At the end of the day, I don't really think any of this matters. You know, they've only recently really kicked the marketing into high gear for this game. Sure, people like myself who have been following the news and info dumps since last year, I think, we're in the know, we're familiar with the game, but for the general public who aren't that big into gaming, they're only just now going to start finding out about Final Fantasy XVI and seeing commercials and advertisements on the internet and seeing, advertisements in stores. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So again, this is a report coming from one person. No other reputable inside sources have mentioned this news, so take it with a massive grain of salt. With that being said, that is the video. I am Curious Corduroy. I guess leave your comments down below. Whatever you guys have to say about this report. What do you think about the sales number for 16? How do you think the game's going to perform? Do you think it'll just be a sleeper hit that comes out and then it just kind of does well by the end of the year? I don't know. What is what anymore? I'll see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.